If you're in expedited trucking or thinking of getting in expedited trucking, you need to be aware that there are people in this industry that are not good characters. They are characters that will work against you. They are characters that are nasty, dirty individuals. These people are not out to help you. These people, in fact, can hurt you or try to hurt you. What I do on this show is I expose everything and everyone in the expedited trucking industry that's doing these acts or doing these crimes. They need to be exposed. If we don't expose them, it continues to go on and on and on. So I implore you to watch the channel, watch the shows, and absorb, so you don't get caught up with these people or you don't do business with these people, because these people, they don't need to be in the industry. They've gone, some of them, way too long getting away with what they get away with because people don't speak up. People need to speak up. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? So, I got a special show for you guys today. It involves some information that was given to me a while back, okay? And I don't care how people feel about this. I hope that the people that this happened to come forward so this doesn't happen to other people, okay? Because in this industry, there are people getting away with actual criminal acts. Criminal acts, very, very nasty criminal acts, from what I'm being told. And these people need to be held accountable, especially for what was relayed to me, okay? Now, I've known about this information for a while. And as of yesterday, when I was getting ready to do this show, I actually had another agent tell me that this same person at a show also made passes at his wife. Now, we're not just talking about passes at people's wives here. We're going to be talking about something else. Something that I think you ladies should pay attention to, okay? And any of you guys that cover for people like this, if they're doing this stuff, you need to go crawl in a hole as well. Because to me, as far as I'm concerned, you're not men, okay? You're cowards if you don't report this stuff, and you're just garbage in my eyes. This kind of stuff, if it's happening in trucking, it needs to be reported, okay? It must be reported. So, I'm going to go over some clips. I'm going to break things down what we're going to discuss, and then I'm going to show you the person. Now, I'm going to make it very clear. As far as I know, this happened, okay? The info was given to me, so I'm hearing this secondhand. It's from a very reliable source, okay? Anything else is my opinion. I don't care what this person thinks. I know what kind of dirtball this person is. And I got a message for you. You should have never messed with me years ago, because I'm out to collect and to bring forth anything that you dirtbags are involved in. And I got something a little bit much worse, maybe even, with your friend. So, let's get started. So, this is the company. Now, we're not going to directly talk about the company because this show is not geared for this company. But this is the company, Barrett Direct Line, okay? You see all the information there. Headquarters, Rogers, Arkansas. On their LinkedIn, it was interesting because it said, this business has succeeded and flourished through the years because it is run with integrity, professionalism, and pride. And this is the part where I say bullshit. Bullshit, 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 okay? Here's the safer information. This is for if anybody wants to know who you're dealing with, okay? Now, what is indecent exposure? Indecent exposure occurs when a person exposes their genitals in a public place in a way that is likely to offend others, assuming that the person in question could reasonably believe that other people might see the act. Indecent exposure is also against the law. For example, if someone exposes himself in front of an open window facing a street or in a public area such as a store or park, the act would likely qualify as indecent exposure. When you go on public, you have the right to do so without being forced to witness another person's activity. If a man walking down the street suddenly unzips his pants or a woman on a bus begins touching herself, they are guilty of indecent exposure. What is indecent exposure exactly? This type of crime gets overlooked sometimes because it doesn't involve physical violence, but it is harmful and illegal. It's possible to experience a assault without ever being touched by another person. This is the case with indecent exposure, which can be distressing and traumatic for victims whose personal freedoms have been violated. In most cases, indecent exposure is considered an crime. In some states, indecent exposure laws overlap with similar crimes, including public indecency, lewd conduct, lewd, indecent, or obscene acts. People, like I said on my channel, anything that has to do with this trucking and expedite industry, I'm going to cover it. This is not a topic that I want to discuss, but I'm not a coward. And I'm not a man that's going to let stuff like this go by without some notice of what may be going on and what can be continually going on. So I have no choice because I'm the only guy that has to bring this stuff to light. In each of these crimes, unwilling participants witness or experience acts performed by the perpetrator. The serious violation of individual rights can be punishable with jail time. In the past, indecent exposure has sometimes been treated as an inconvenience or an embarrassment and is often casually referred to as flashing. However, as with any form of assault, indecent exposure is a punishable crime that is in no way victimless. It is important to note that most states do not require someone to actually see the other person's private parts for a criminal act to have occurred. For example, if someone in a restaurant suddenly exposes themselves, but the rest of the patrons turn or cover their eyes so they do not see anything, the act of knowingly exposing oneself may be enough for a criminal conviction. How can you prove indecent exposure? To convict someone for indecent exposure, prosecutors must prove certain aspects of the crime. Specifically, prosecutors must show that an act involved the following elements. Exposure of private parts. Although definitions sometimes vary by state, private parts generally refer to male and female genitalia. Willful exposure. Exposure must be intentional. In other words, a person whose bathing suit falls off at a public beach is not guilty of indecent exposure. A public place, stores, libraries, public transportation, and parks are all public places, regardless of whether they are privately or publicly owned. The presence of another, at least one other person, must be present at the time of the incident to prosecute for indecent exposure. Now, if this story went unreported, and I heard there was other people there, you all should really get a reality check in life. You all should get a reality check in life. And you should come forward and publicly or go to the law enforcement and tell them exactly what occurred. Are there laws against indecent exposure? Indecent exposure is a serious crime that causes significant discomfort for victims. It is illegal in the United States under Title 25, Section 11.408 of the Code of Federal Regulations. Regardless of whether the act is intended as a joke, to offend someone, or to create a sensation of arousal. It violates the law, and the perpetrator can be prosecuted. What are the penalties for indecent exposure? As a misdemeanor, most indecent exposure convictions will not carry significant jail time. Typical penalties for the first conviction for this kind of crime include fines. In indecent exposure cases, courts may penalize defendants with fines of $1,000 or more. Incarceration. First-time offenders may face a year or more in jail, depending on the circumstances and state where the crime occurred. Probation. A person convicted of indecent exposure may be sentenced to probation, which involves regularly meeting with a probation officer and meeting certain conditions, such as maintaining steady employment. Community service. An indecent exposure conviction may also result in a community service assignment with a court-approved organization. Registration as a sex offender. Let me repeat that. Registration as a sex offender. Many states require criminals convicted of indecent exposure to register as sex offenders. Convictions for subsequent indecent exposure offenses can carry more substantial fines and sentences to serve time in state prison. And that's why, if things like this are going on, they need to be reported, they need to be documented, and if it's true, they need to get their sex offender registration. Because if it happens again, okay, and people knew that stuff like this was going on and they didn't bring it to light, so something worse or another act again happens, you see what goes on in society if you don't report this kind of. Let me move on. Here's the guy, Mr. Steve Barrett, the owner of Barrett Direct Line. Yes, there he is. Let me say something here. It doesn't matter what kind of collared shirt or tie you put on. If you are doing these kind of acts to women in the trucking industry, okay, you are garbage. This is my opinion. I don't care if you like it or don't like it. As a father of 2 daughters, if this kind of stuff is happening to women from someone who owns a trucking company in the same trucking industry I'm in, I'm not going to let it go unnoticed. I'm not going to let it just fall into the dark. I hope that the victims and any witnesses finally come forward to tell exactly what happened, if it happened. That's what the pig supposedly did. What did the pig do? So, if he's doing this kind of stuff, okay, ladies, I'm saying ladies, I hope you're all ladies, because I got to do this show as a man to support you to go against possible scumbags like this. Why would a man expose himself in public? Exhibitionism is a form of paraphilia. Exhibitionists, usually males, expose their genitals, usually to unsuspecting strangers, and become usually excited when doing so. They may be aware of their need to surprise, shock, or impress the unwilling observer. This little clip here is reminding me of the story that was told to me. This clip right here. What triggers exhibitionism? The exact exhibitionistic disorder causes are unknown, but it is thought that one or multiple factors such as antisocial personality disorder, substance abuse, or other paraphilic disorders may play a role. Interesting. Is it illegal for a man to expose himself? Indecent exposure is typically charged as a misdemeanor offense. In contrast to a felony or an infraction, the crime is often punishable by a fine and/or custody in county jail for up to 1 year. Offenders also typically have to register as a sex offender. Key takeaways. Indecent exposure is defined as the intentional exposure of private parts in public, often considered a sex crime. Often considered a sex crime. Definitions of indecent exposure vary across jurisdictions, with definitions varying by state, and legal prosecution requires proving willful exposure in public and the presence of others, with penalties also varying by jurisdiction. Victims can take steps such as contacting law enforcement. The hypocrisy of this, the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. Here we have Mr. Barrett in a photo with a priest. In a photo, I'm guessing it's a real priest. He's got the collar on. This disgusts me. This disgusts me. What can you do if you are a victim of indecent exposure? If a person exposes themselves to you in a public space, it is important to react quickly. This will help you. I gotta slow down. This kind of stuff, it really upsets me. It really, truly upsets me. This will help to ensure your safety and increase the likelihood that the perpetrator will be caught and prosecuted. Promptly remove yourself from the situation by walking away or asking for help from another person nearby. Once you are safe, immediately contact the police and describe the suspect and the location where the exposure occurred. You can contact the National S Assault Hotline, there's the number, 1-800-656-4673, or the National S Violence Resource Center for support. These organizations can provide information about counseling, crisis centers, and local resources. So, folks, the story I had heard was that either at the Expedite Expo show or one of these other gatherings where a lot of these people go to, that this person in the show here, Mr. Barrett, exposed himself to a couple women. And I'm assuming other people are around. I'm going to assume, it's assumption, that he was drinking heavily, which is not a defense to do this kind of act. But for a grown man to do this to women, what does that say about this person? What does this say if this person has done this act and has not been held accountable? This is a matter that must be addressed, because if these kind of things are going on in trucking and I hear about it, it's going to come on the show. It's going to come on the show, from the fraud to the crooks, the double brokering, the money laundering, these crimes. If you're a victim, okay, and you want to reach out, you want to put your story, or you need to know where to go, I'll help you. I'll guide you, because these scumbags, this tops it. This tops it. Okay, so like I said, I heard this information secondhand. Very good information from the source. It's probably maybe about 2 years old. Okay? Before even I started my channel. I hear things, I see things, people come to me with things. I'm going to put it out there. It's what the channel is for. I'm not scared of these individuals. I've been in many battles in my life. I'm not the guy that backs down. These people should have known better years ago before tangoing with me, because I'm like a wolf and I was waiting. And everything I dig, everything I find, everything that's reported to me, I'm going to bring it to everybody. Everybody has a right to know if stuff like this is occurring in the industry. That's it, folks.